What would you do if you found yourself outdone by nature itself? I'm Dre, and this is the Midnight Hour. Tonight we are going to be looking at a very stark writer, a very brutal writer in terms of themes, and that is Jack London. And we are specifically going to be looking at To Build a Fire 1908's version. Now, To Build a Fire was actually written twice, in 1902 and 1908. The 1902 version is very adventurous, is very youthful and middle school friendly. The narrator, I believe, has a name. I think it's Tom, but I'm not sure. And basically he goes out on the Yukon Trail in the dead of winter, and a bunch of stuff happens and he gets saved at the end. To Build a Fire 1908's version is a lot darker. It's a lot sadder, and it's a lot more realistic. Basically, it is about an unnamed narrator and a wolf dog who go out on the Yukon Trail, but they skirt off of it, I believe, at the very beginning. And the narrator wants to be in this camp that he's headed to by nightfall. He's brought some food with him, some biscuits and bacon, and that's it. No sled, no nothing. And as he's walking, he actually falls through some ice and gets his legs wet. Now, this is almost a death sentence if it weren't for some matches that he also has on him. So, of course, as the title shows us, he tries to build a fire, and he succeeds until he realizes that he's built it under these branches covered in snow, and every time he reached for another twig under the tree, it sent these signals to the tree that basically results in the snow wiping out the fire completely. At that point, the man becomes so frightened that he's going to freeze to death that he begins to consider killing the wolf dog and sheltering within his body. Of course, that would be too much, and he, at that point, begins to run along the trail. Get the blood pumping, get the blood flowing, but he continues to fall down. He realizes that he can't run to the camp. He does not have that type of endurance. So while he is laying in the snow, the perspective shifts to the wolf dog, and it looks at the man, realizes there's something off. He's never seen a man lie in snow without building a fire for so long. He creeps up closer to the man and catches the scent of death and immediately backs away, howls a few more times. By this point, there are stars in the sky, night has fallen, and the dog begins to run in the opposite direction, back to the camp that it knows, where there are people, where there is food, and where there is fire. And that's how the story ends. Now we're going to look at 3 sections of the story that I think, again, really capture its essence. The first one is, but all this, the mysterious, far-reaching hairline trail, the absence of sun from the sky, the tremendous cold, and the strangeness and weirdness of it all, made no impression on the man. It was not because he was long used to it. He was a newcomer in the land, a Chachaco, and this was his first winter. The trouble with him was that he was without imagination. He was quick and alert in the things of life, but only in the things and not in the significances. 50 degrees below zero meant 80 odd degrees of frost. Such fact impressed him as being cold and uncomfortable, and that was all. It did not lead him to meditate upon his frailty as a creature of temperature, and upon man's frailty in general, able only to live within certain narrow limits of heat and cold. And from there on, it did not lead him to the conjectural field of immortality and man's place in the universe. 50 degrees below zero stood for a bite of frost that hurt, and that must be guarded against by the use of mittens, ear flaps, warm moccasins, and thick socks. 50 degrees below zero was to him just precisely 50 degrees below zero. That there should be anything more to it than that was a thought that never entered his head. Man's arrogance. Man's arrogance is what that basically entails, and what that passage relays to me. When man has come so far and has conquered so many areas of his life and of the world, he eventually gets to the question of, can I conquer nature? And in this case, the man absolutely failed in trying to do that. So the second passage says, when the man had finished, he filled his pipe and took his comfortable time over a smoke. Then he pulled on his mittens, settled the ear flaps of his cap firmly about his ears, and took the creek trail up to the left fork. The dog was disappointed and yearned back toward the fire. This man did not know cold. Possibly all the generations of his ancestry had been ignorant of cold, of real cold, of cold 107 degrees below freezing point. But the dog knew. All its ancestry knew, and it had inherited the knowledge, and it knew that it was not good to walk abroad in such fearful cold. That basically shows you right there that primal instinct of the dog knowing that this is not going to end well. This should not be taking place. But the man is too arrogant and too ignorant of the cold, indeed. So when we pit man's arrogance against primal instinct will win every time. It's been ingrained in this animal's DNA. It's in this dog's blood to know it should not be out there. But man, having conquered so much throughout history, just gets this wind of an idea to hike the Yukon Trail in 75 below degree weather. And the ending is that much more tragic. The third section has the man running in a panicked sort of way and just realizing this is his last stand. And it says, a certain fear of death, dull and oppressive, came to him. This fear quickly became poignant as he realized that it was no longer a mere matter of freezing his fingers and toes, or of losing his hands and feet, but that it was a matter of life and death with the chances against him. This threw him into a panic, and he turned and ran up the creek bed along the old, dim trail. The dog joined in behind and kept up with him. He ran blindly, without intention, in fear such as he had never known in his life. Slowly, as he plowed and floundered through the snow, he began to see things again. The banks of the creek, the old timber jams, the leafless aspens and the sky. The running made him feel better. He did not shiver. Maybe, if he ran on, his feet would thaw out. And anyway, if he ran far enough, he would reach camp and the boys. Without doubt, he would lose some fingers and toes and some of his face, but the boys would take care of him and save the rest of him when he got there. And at the same time, there was another thought in his mind that said he would never get to the camp and the boys, that it was too many miles away, that the freezing had too great a start on him, and that he would soon be stiff and dead. This thought he kept in the background and refused to consider. Sometimes it pushed itself forward and demanded to be heard, but he thrust it back and strove to think of other things. horribly tragic. And it just goes to show that when you are that near to the end, there is nothing to do but, like this man eventually does, accept it with dignity. When we are placed in such dire situations and we do meet the result head on and with dignity, that speaks to our humanity in a positive light, in a positive way. It shows us that even though we have failed in trying to overcome nature itself, we can still go out with this amount of humanity that other beings may not be able to have. So to answer our question of the night, what if we are outdone by nature itself? At that point, I would think that we would try to do what this narrator does and go out with that dignity that we were just speaking about. I think that nature is one of those forces and elements that we cannot overcome. And so I think that the point of this story is really respect. In a word, respect the elements, respect the unknown. It's unknown for a reason. Leave it to the primal instinctive species and basically stay in your lane. Humans, stay in your lane and don't try to bestow and conquer everything, because you won't be able to. We won't be able to. And that's just my little take on it. Next week, we will be looking at, can you enjoy beauty when you know that others are suffering? Like if you felt something, comment if you wrote something, and I will see you next Sunday at the midnight hour.